Sort of Sports Podcast, episode 22. It's currently February 14th, 2022, 4:25 p.m. It's been about, do some math, 18 hours, little more than 18 hours since the Rams won the Super Bowl. They beat the Cincinnati Bengals in Super Bowl 56 with a score of 23-20. The game came down to a 4th and 1 in which Joe Burrow was sacked by the best defensive player in the NFL for the past 5 years? His whole career, 8 years? Then Aaron Donald did one of the best celebrations I've ever seen in the Super Bowl. And I was wrong. I could cut it right there, couldn't I? All right, well, I was going to record this last night, and I decided, I got home, and it was already late, and I ended up not doing that just because by the time I recorded it, I'd have been up till like 12:30, and I didn't feel like doing that. So, well, maybe more like midnight, but it doesn't really matter. I was saying I would rather give me more time to think about what I was going to say. So, I don't even know why I'm making this episode, honestly. Originally, I was going to make this big episode when the Bengals won, or, when they were supposed to win, and I was going to, be very similar to the Unscripted Yes episode, which is like one of my favorite episodes I've ever made, where I just went, it was right after the Bucs won the title, and I was just excited, and I just let it all pour out of me. And this was going to be the same thing, but with the Bengals, because I was just so excited that they had won. And granted, the Bengals aren't my favorite team or anything. I'm obviously a big Burrow fan, but, it was just more about the fact that it's Ohio. I live in Ohio. It's a big and momentous event. And, I predicted that, and I felt like it was kind of a bit of a shot to call that. But this is the reverse of the Yes episode. And this is the sadness episode. Because, I think last year I would have given you an episode like this when the Chiefs lost to the Bucs, but at that time I don't think the lore of the podcast was there. Like now we've had like a year and a half of me doing podcasts, so like there's a lot more running gags and there's, like storylines almost of like things that I've done that carry over, and this is like one of those. This is like I think what I'm going to do now, and there's something I'm really passionate about, like a championship. When I'm really passionate about a championship team and something happens, I gotta make like a instant reaction video, and that's what I'm doing right here. So let's talk about the game. The Bengals had it, and then the Rams went on a drive that'll be talked about for years probably. It was a heck of a drive, won the game. Passed to Cooper Kupp. There were some flags in the end zone. Every time the Super Bowl happens and there's a flag on the play, doesn't matter what it is. NFL rigged. NFL's rigged. If the NFL's rigged, it makes everything I do on this podcast pointless. So I really hope it's not. I do believe there are teams that the NFL would rather have succeed over others, and I think the Rams are one of those teams. But I don't think Roger Goodell's calling them down there and saying, "Hey, make sure they win." I think if there's a 50-50 call, he'd rather have it go the Rams' way. But they're not full out sitting there being like, and then Cooper Kupp on the 30-yard line will catch the ball. It's like I think there's an element, but I don't think it's enough to throw a fit about. But I don't know. And, I thought those calls are questionable, but in the same sense, they gave up the offensive pass interference on T. Higgins when he got that big touchdown. So, there's also that side of the story. So I think, the NFL rigged thing, to me, if they're going to rig it for anybody, if they're going to rig it for anybody, they'd rig it for the Rams. Yeah, I get that, but I'm also saying, there was a big call they could have put on the Bengals that would have erased that touchdown, and they didn't. So I don't really know about that. I don't really think it was rigged. It was the team that was bought against the team that was built. But lucky for the Rams, the players that were their two best players that stepped up were the two guys that they actually drafted, and that's Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald. Now, I think it'd be a different narrative if Donald had a bad game, which is like impossible, and Kupp was overshadowed by Beckham, because then it's, the Rams' pieces won him the game. So I think that's very interesting. And I mean, the whole story was, can the O-line of the Bengals withstand this pass rush? And they could, and they got slowly worn down as the game went on. At the start, they didn't really have any problems. Then as the game went on, it just slowly got worse and worse for the Bengals O-line until they flat out collapsed, resulting in a loss. I mean, you got to hand it to Aaron Donald. I mean, his career is off the charts. I think Cooper Kupp definitely deserved Super Bowl MVP, but honestly, I would like to have given it to Aaron Donald. But I love the stat I just tweeted out that was, Cooper Kupp in one season got a Super Bowl MVP and Offensive Player of the Year and Triple Crown. The only other player to ever do that is Jerry Rice, and he did that throughout his whole career. He didn't do it in one season. Saying that was overall in his whole career he did that. So that's just nuts. Yeah, so here's Aaron Donald's accomplishments. 8-time Pro Bowler. He's been in the league for 8 years. 7-time All-Pro. So that's, All-Pro are obviously a lot more important than Pro Bowls. Then he was Defensive Rookie of the Year. Then he was Defensive Player of the Year 3 times, right? Yeah. 3 times. 17, 18, 20. Who's 19? Is that that's Stephon Gilmore. So I mean, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, 1-time Super Bowl champ, 8-time Pro Bowler, 7-time All Pro. I mean, legitimately, like, one of the best defense players of all time. We've talked about that for a while now, like really ever since like 2019. Everybody's been like, Aaron Donald's best player in the league, any position. I'm like, I probably won't really argue with you on that. And I think he really is the star that I wanted to. There are people that are like, it's fun to see Stafford and Beckham and those guys get their ring. I'm like, really the only guy I see that for is Donald. I'm like, I wanted to see Donald win a Super Bowl. Like, he's really the only guy on that team. But overall, I didn't really want to see the Rams win. It's the LA team. The Chargers are different. The Chargers are a kidnapped San Diego team. Like, the Rams are the LA team. It's like when the Lakers win. I'd be feeling the same way if the Cowboys won. It's like, it's not fun to see these big money market media people, like, with all the celebrities. Like, it's Cincinnati, dude. Like, their own state isn't even, they're not even the main team in their own state. There's no state that, like, roots for Cincinnati wholly. Like, Ohio is majority Browns, and then Steelers are almost as big as Bengals. So I just think it's wild. It's like, I'm genuinely a little upset when Aaron Donald sacked Joe Burrow to end the game, which I felt like was storybook. Like, that is the exact representation of what people said was going to happen, and that's what the game came down to. It just, like, all the wind got knocked out of me, and I was like, oh, dang it. And that was that. I mean, the put it right here, I want it right here, ring celebration, that was pretty freaking good. I got to hand it to Donald. If he had that planned, genius. If he didn't have it planned, even more genius. I mean, that was impressive. I mean, Donald, I saw something that was like, is Donald the third greatest player of all time behind Brady and Lawrence Taylor? I think Brady and Lawrence Taylor are the two best players like ever. Brady offensively, Taylor defensively. Donald, I don't know if he's third, but he might be top 10. He's nuts. There's talk about him retiring. First ballot Hall of Famer, even if he retires right now. I'd love to see him go on. I think he could get probably at least 2 more defense players a year, if not 3. And then, I mean, his goal from now would be to win another Super Bowl or get an MVP as a defensive player. Which, the way the NFL has gone, they only give MVP to quarterbacks right now, which I really don't like because Derrick Henry needs to have an MVP, and so does Cooper Kupp. And I think this Super Bowl further proved the fact that Cooper Kupp should have been MVP. I think that's really a loss on the NFL's part. I think they missed that, so I think Cooper should have been MVP. But, I mean, it felt like the whole year we were moving towards a Rams win in the Super Bowl. So I think that's very interesting with what's going on and everything. Like, I think it's weird we had this crazy NFL season, A lot of upsets, a lot of big changes, and then, we ended with the team that on paper looked like one of the top teams at the beginning of the year. I just think that's an interesting thing that happened, honestly. It's still, they weren't a surefire bet. The Bucks had really good odds. Packers were a popular favorite. But, you talk about top 5 teams picked to win the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year. It was like Chiefs, Bucks, Browns, Rams, Packers. Those are the main ones. You had some Bills, you had some Titans, but those are really the main ones. So, now let's talk about the future, though. So, I think it's really interesting for the Rams going forward. I don't think they'd be able to win a Super Bowl in 2 years. I think next year they could potentially run it back, but I would bet against that. Also, congrats to McVay. His career is not going to be defined by Super Bowl loss. So, I am happy for McVay, but I still think he could be out-schemed by Kyle Shanahan. But that's going to bring me to talk about the future. So, if you look at the NFC now, let's start with the AFC. The AFC, because I'm seeing people talk about Burrow, and it's like, well, he'll be back there. I'm like, yeah, I think he will too, but I don't think it's as soon as you think, because let's look at the AFC right now. They've got the Chiefs of Mahomes, the Bengals with Burrow, the Bills with Josh Allen, the Ravens with Lamar. I think Trevor Lawrence could definitely come around. The Patriots are rebuilding nicely, and the Titans could get something. And on top of that, the main one to me is the Chargers, Herbert. All of those teams could make Super Bowl runs, realistically. And then let's not forget, there could be a team that comes out of nowhere. So it's just going to be a bloodbath for any quarterback. I think there's a chance that the next 3 AFC champions are, all different. Like, we would get Chiefs last year, Bengals this year, and then, maybe like Chargers, Ravens, Patriots, or Chargers, Bills, Patriots, or something like that. And, everybody's going to get their shot. It's going to be a bloodbath. And if Mahomes comes out with 3, he's the best guy. Or Mahomes comes out with 2, he might be the best guy. Or, if Josh Allen gets 2, it's going to be really impressive in this next, 10 years. The AFC is just going to be a bloodbath to get to the Super Bowl until somebody leaves. Whereas the NFC, if Rodgers really bounces, like I think he might, to Denver, further strengthening the AFC, it's like the NFC is wide open with Brady's retirement. Because the Seahawks are falling, the Seahawks aren't really having their stuff together. The Cardinals are weird right now. What's going on with Kyler Murray? The Rams are obviously can't really stay this good for this long. They built to win now, not for the future. And then, that's really it, right? The Packers, we'll see what happens with Jordan Love. The Lions are 4 or 5 years away from competing. The Vikings need a quarterback that can match their receiver talent. And so, to me, if Trey Lance could come in next year and be a top 10 quarterback, just top 10, not even top 5. Top 10, be realistic. Well, more realistic. I feel like the Niners could go to 2 out of 3 next Super Bowls because they're the most talented team. I think they've got, in my opinion, probably the best coach in the league. He's one of the best coaches in the league. I think it's him, Bill, and then Reed, maybe, but Reed's gotten a little too cute lately where he runs a lot of slip screens and stuff, and it's just play it simple, dude. But Shanahan, for my money right now, might be the best best coach in the league. So that's impressive. And, they could just be scary. I was talking to somebody today, I was like, if you put Kyler Murray on the Niners, think about that. I'm like, Kyler Murray isn't even top 5. I'd put Kyler Murray right now behind Stafford. I think Stafford's probably about 7th behind Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes. I say 7. Yeah, so that was... Oh, and Aaron Rodgers. There's 6. I'd put him behind all those guys, and then I'd put Kyler Murray behind him. So, let's put the 8th best quarterback in the league, unless I'm forgetting somebody. I think that's probably about right. Put the 8th best quarterback in the league on the Niners, and I think they go to the Super Bowl, 2 out of 3 next Super Bowls, and probably win one of them. That team is so talented. All their best players are young. They've got a great coach. The Niners, I think, are set up to be a flat-out, I don't know about dynasty, but perennial contender. So I think the Niners are going to be a really interesting thing because this NFC, if a right team gets into it and starts dominating, they can dominate for years because a lot of teams in the NFC have to fix what they got going on. I mean, you can make an argument for the Cowboys, but I'm not a huge fan of the players they have on that team. I don't really think it's going to come together. And so, I mean, let's talk about maybe the Washington football team. I'd like to see it. I don't think it's going to happen. Giants are always a mess. It's like there's not a lot of teams there that could just, take control of the NFC. And I think the Niners are the clear-cut favorite to do so. So I think that'll be really interesting. Now, then you got the, whole Carolina Panthers. I mean, I think we're like 3 years from a title team, which really sucks, but I want to be realistic. Maybe Malik Willis comes in and plays like Rookie of the Year. That'd be awesome. Or Kenny Pickett, whoever we get. But, I mean, realistically, the Niners could, flat out dominate the league for, 3-4 years if they make the right moves this offseason. I don't know if the Rams are going back-to-back. I don't really think they will. I think next year it'll be an AFC team. I really feel like we're getting a Chargers Super Bowl next year. That or a Ravens. I think those two just feel right, even though I don't think the Ravens are an amazing team. Lamar's going to get one at some point, right? It'll be interesting to see who comes out on top out of that AFC bloodbath, though, because Mahomes could prove he's the best if he wins 2 or 3 and everybody else gets 1. But overall, I'm just really interested to see where the NFL takes place in the next few years. But if we're talking about right now, I mean, props to Burrow and the Bengals. What a run. I hate to see it end like that, though. But that's why I'm a little worried about the sentiment of, oh, well, he'll be back. I'm like, yeah, but I don't think it's going to be as soon as you think. I mean, I love Burrow, and I like the players on that team. I really like T. Higgins, but I don't think they're a sure thing. So, I mean, if the Chargers have a better defense, they potentially be in the AFC title game and take that, the spot the Bengals had. So, I think it's interesting. Talking about, I think I brought this up before. I mean, that Andrew Luck thing is so underrated. The fact that Andrew Luck retired, people don't think about it, but I think it's a game changer for the league because if Andrew Luck was in the league right now, the Colts, put him on the Colts, just right now. Johnny Taylor, everybody calls him Jonathan Taylor, and T.Y. Hilton and Pittman Jr. and everybody on that team. I think they're in the Super Bowl and they win it. I think that's a really underrated move is the fact that Andrew Luck retired. I think, there's a natural flow with sports teams, right? And when somebody gets injured or blows up when they're not supposed to, it messes up that flow you were on. There's a natural ebb and flow. You're supposed to be good, and then you fall apart. And you got to take advantage of when you're good. And, you can break that cycle, but it's dangerous. So, I mean, and usually when they break cycles, for the worst. The Bulls, right? They had Michael Jordan, had their big run. Well, then they weren't very good in the early 2000s. And then they started, they were trending down. Then they started trending up again, and they drafted Derrick Rose. His injury derailed the entire momentum of the franchise. And then you have an extremely long down period because you had a down period that was supposed to be your up period alongside with the down period you're already supposed to have. The Ravens broke their down period because they got Lamar Jackson with the 30th pick. He was a late pick. And Lamar, they were supposed to be on their down stretch, but then Lamar reinvigorated the franchise. So now they got to figure out what they're doing with Lamar. I think it's really weird the way it's how pro sports works, but the way it is, and especially with the NFL. So, the Andrew Luck leaving really sent them into a downturn that they weren't supposed to have, the Colts. So I think it's a really interesting situation. I don't even know what else to say, really. I mean, this is one of the most sad openings to the podcast. I was really disappointed to see, the Bengals lose. Roger Goodell was just beside himself with happiness. The fact that he got to have this big Super Bowl halftime show with Eminem, Dr. Dre, and everybody. And, team in L.A. with all the celebrities there, and the L.A. team won. And, he's just so happy. And I really wish it was the Bengals, man. I really do. But, yeah, I don't even know really what else to say, just other than the fact that, congrats to the Rams, especially Aaron Donald. I mean, that man really deserves it. Cooper Kupp, too. And, Houday, keep it up. I think, the Bengals definitely got a bright future. I just think that AFC is going to be a bloodbath every year. NFC, the Niners won it. It's for them, theirs for the taking. So, overall, that was Super Bowl 56. I thought the halftime show was pretty cool. I'm a big Kendrick Lamar and Eminem guy, so I like the fact they did all right. They did all right. Kendrick did all right. Eminem was awesome. I thought it was really funny that McPherson came out and watched the show. But, sorry. I think that's really it. So, we're recording Big Salad tomorrow. I'm sure Quinn will have a lot to say. He was, of course, cheering for the freaking Rams. Well, I'll see you in the next one. Super Bowl 57. Taking Chargers over Chargers. Well, I don't know about that because what if Rodgers goes to the Broncos? You know what? We're just going to go hypothetical. So Rodgers doesn't go to the Broncos. Even if he does go to the Broncos, maybe the Chargers beat him. We're taking Chargers over Niners. Why not? Just stab in the dark. Chargers over Niners. You heard it here first. A year from now. I don't know. It's been a heck of a season. I think one of the best NFL seasons, one of the best playoffs. It was a great time, and there wasn't really like one dominant team. Everything was close. Even the Super Bowl was close. The third quarter wasn't very good, though. I mean, there wasn't a lot of great football going on, a lot of 4-and-outs, but then that last quarter really kicked it up. So I thought it was a pretty good Super Bowl. It's not as good as like 52, 51, but those are some of the best ever. 54 is underrated. It's a great Super Bowl, but this is a pretty good one. I think it's like above average. I thought it was pretty good. I'd give it like out of the whole, it'd probably be in the top 20. Yeah, probably top 20, maybe top 25. So, all right, that's been it. Hope you enjoyed the disappointment podcast of the Sort of Sports. Well, it's a disappointment episode of the Sort of Sports podcast. See you in the next one.